Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to vibe code a carousel and then put it inside of a Rise course. Now this carousel is not just going to have images, but it's going to have text. We can put some images in there, we can put some videos, and it's going to be a little bit different than the carousels that you create out of the box inside of Rise. It is going to be something that we vibe code and then we customize however we want. And you could even just, you can put this anywhere. You could put it on a website, you could put it somewhere. You can wrap it up inside of a mobile application, different things like that. But we're going to vibe code it and then we're going to place it inside of Rise and then just see how it performs inside of Rise as well. And we're going to be using something a little bit different. I've talked about various different tools. You can check out my previous videos here where we talked about how to vibe code with ChatGPT, how to vibe code with Lovable. Today we're going to use Claude. Now Claude is a separate application that you can get at Claude AI and you can vibe code in there as well. Now there's different parts of Claude. You can get the Claude code on the premium version, or you can just vibe code a single HTML page, which is exactly what we need for Rise. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So I'm going to pull up Claude. Let me go ahead and pull up, you can go to Claude AI and you just create a free account. And this is exactly what you'll see here, or you can actually use the desktop version, which I'm going to go ahead and use the desktop version. For some reason, I like using desktop versions over web. I don't like to have a lot of tabs. Maybe that's just my preference open. So I like to have a desktop application. And so I'm going to go ahead and use that. And we're going to prompt it to create a carousel, but with text and some navigation. We want to have the ability to jump forward or jump backwards as well. So let's create a single, I'm going to define it as a single HTML page. So a single HTML page that has a carousel. Now, when you're working with a carousel, there's different things that's so versatile because you can have it just take up a small portion of the screen, or you can have it take up the full portion of the screen. And because this is a single HTML file, I want it to take up the full portion of the screen. So I'm going to define that. So it's going to take up the full portion of the screen, and it will have navigation buttons to slide back and forth in the carousel. So slide back and forth with carousel, but on top of the carousel, let's add segmented controls to indicate page navigation or slide navigation, carousel navigation as well. But I'm doing the segmented controls because I see that often, especially with like Instagram stories, or I think TikTok. I don't use TikTok a lot, but with TikTok where you have like the segmented controls so you can see on the stories exactly how many more stories you have to view as well. So I like that, and I want to see so the learner can see where we're at inside of each of the pages. Let's add segmented controls to indicate page navigation. And when you reach the end of the page, end of the carousel, have a congratulations page. Okay, so let's see, we're going to have to iterate. Whenever you're working with vibe code, you always give it an initial prompt, but then you're going to test it out and make sure that it's exactly what you need before you can go ahead and copy and paste it into Rise. So I'm just going to hit enter here. Now it starts to generate the HTML file for me. So you can see this being built out, but there is something called a canvas mode. And so it automatically, as soon as it's done, goes into canvas mode so we can preview exactly what it's going to look like. You can also go into the code and edit the code straight from the canvas mode, or you can copy the code straight from there and paste it into Rise. Now, what I find with Claude compared to ChatGPT is Claude, especially when you're using other tools like Cursor or Visual Studio Code, I think Claude actually does a better job in coding. It's a little bit more reliable. So anytime that I can actually choose which model to use, I typically use the Claude model. That's why if you just go straight to the source here and you're using Claude to create that, I think the code is going to be great here. So you can see right here, we have our page navigation. So it automatically goes into preview mode. With ChatGPT, sometimes it doesn't. You just have to tell it to go into canvas mode. But for Claude, every time I've ever had any type of code, it just automatically previews it there. So we can see here the welcome, and we have some navigation. Now there is a 0-1 behind the scenes. I'll probably want to get rid of that here, but here is some segmented controls. Now I did not define it as like segmented with dashes or with lines. I could change that if I wanted to, but I actually think this is pretty nice up here. But let's go ahead and just start going through some of this. So you can see right here, 0, 2, 03, and then we have some text right there. Now what I want to do is get to the end here, and then you can see a congratulations with some lines that are just kind of crossed. And that was a little weird, so I'd probably want to do that or adjust that. But first of all, and this is typically what I do when I'm working with something and I want it to change, is I take a screenshot of it so I can tell Claude, ChatGPT, Lovable, whatever tool that I'm working with, I can show it exactly what I'm seeing here. So I grab that screenshot, and with a Mac, you can just quickly grab and drag that into your chat here. There are numbers behind the text that makes it hard to read the text. Get rid of those giant numbers. I didn't specify, maybe I needed to on every single page, but like do this on every single page. If it doesn't do it, we'll go ahead and do a follow-up to get rid of that on every single page here. Now, one of the nice things about iterating is it's not trying to write the entire code every single time. It is basically just taking the existing code and modifying the existing code instead of rewriting it from scratch. So your preview will stay here, and then you can see exactly when it's updated. So it lets me know that it's done. I can open it in Safari or Chrome, whatever your default application web browser is, so you can open that up. But let's go ahead and navigate. You can see that, yes, it has gotten rid of the numbers on every single page. What I want to do is get to this page and take a screenshot of those squares that pop up automatically. And then let's get rid of that. On the congratulations page, there are some weird squares that show up as soon as you get to this page. Have the confetti off the screen when it loads, and then drop it down. It's the confetti that's dropping down, and I think it's starting out on the middle of the screen, and so we need to move it up and then have it come down basically from there. So we'll see if that fixes the issue here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and reload this, or it does reload it automatically. If you ever do need to reload it, you can click here. If you do wanna see the code, you can actually come into the code by clicking on this top part here. If you want to copy the code, you can go ahead and click on copy. If you want to download the code for future reference or to put it on your own website, you can click on download, or you can click on publish artifact. Now, publish artifact gives you a link that you can send out to other people, but that hosting probably isn't going to last forever. So I would just go ahead and download it, put it on my own website. We're eventually going to put that inside of Rise, but I just want to double check to make sure that confetti is good here. Yep, and it starts out, we don't get those weird lines. It starts out from the top and drops from the bottom there. So if I click on start again, it will take me to the very first part. Now on some pages, this is where you can start to iterate and you can add images, you can add video and so forth. So on page 1, let's add a stock photo from pixels with rounded corners above the text. I just want to show you that you can start to add other elements here and not just have text. You can have other things. If you want to modify, instead of the dots, have dashes, you could do that as well. If you want to change the page navigation from being in the middle to the bottom, simply just ask it, move the page navigation to the bottom of the screen. So things like that. Now, sometimes I run into this with like this welcome image. So what I typically do in this case is I go ahead and I just take a screenshot and say, the image is broken. Grab a URL from Pexels or Unsplash and have the image shown. Now, if that doesn't work, I may need to go to Pexels and I may need to actually grab the URL and give it and specify that I want this image. But let's go ahead and see if this changes it. Okay, so it is not working still. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go into Pexels. And let's find a photo about just corporate. Okay, so let's go ahead and just grab this image right here. And I'm gonna right click on it. Then I'm gonna go down to copy link image. So let's go back into Claude here. The image is still not working. Use this URL. So we're getting right to that image. So hopefully this time it works. Now, if you are using images from Pexels, there are some in the more information you will want to define if you need to reference that or attribute it or something like that. You'll need to go ahead and do that as well. Now, it's still not working, so let me go ahead and go into the code. And you can see that the image there, I think, is the right URL. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that. And let's bring this up here. And it is pointing to the right URL, so it may be something just inside of the Claude desktop application. That is good to know. So at this point, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy that. And so let's go into Rise here. All right, so I'm inside of Rise, I'm inside of a sample course, so I'm just gonna go into one of these pages, and I'm going to go ahead and add a block. Now the block is going to be a code block, and this is going to be a single HTML file. So we'll go ahead and add the first part, and then we'll click on Add Code. Now I can just copy and paste in the code. Now notice the image is pulling up, so it's exactly what I was thinking. For some reason on the desktop version, the image reference isn't working. If I tried to do that in the web version, maybe it worked a little bit more. But we have a little bit of an issue. So it doesn't automatically detect the size. So what I can do is I can come in here and under the format, I can just go ahead and click on format. And instead of auto resize, I'm gonna go ahead and define the size a little bit more. So if you adjust the size, it will expand out. Sometimes it works perfectly, sometimes it does not. So it just depends on the interaction. I'm not sure exactly what determines the size, but that's exactly what you need to do if you ever run into that issue. So let's go ahead and just preview this here. So I'll click on preview up on the top right-hand side. And now if I click on continue here, there is our interaction. Looks great. We have our image with the rounded corners. Everything is looking good there, so I can go on to each slide. And I didn't notice this before, but there is also a slide progress indicator on the bottom. So it kind of blends in with the background on the bottom here. If you want to change colors, you can change colors, but look at that animation as it starts to fall there as well. So there are so many different possibilities with this. You can add videos, you can add interactive elements, you can add an accordion, you can add flip cards inside of there. There are so many different possibilities with this. I'm going to do one more thing, and I'm going to show you that you can start to combine, and this is really where the flexibility is. And the reason why you'd want to use this compared to like out of the box components like carousels is because you don't have this control. But let's go ahead and just say on page 2, let's add an accordion that expands out 2 or 3 to 4 different items with some text inside of it. I'm not really specifying content. You can specify content, but I'm not doing it for this example, just to show you more functionality. And that's really, it's up to you on the contents. My channel doesn't really talk a lot about content. We talk more about development. So that's really where I focus on. That is done. Let's go ahead and go on to page 2 and look at this. We have an accordion. So if we expand that out, it kind of matches the style. We could tell it to fill the entire width. Right now, it's kind of only filling a part of the width, but you can see how it expands out. You can see how it animates the plus. You could say instead of a plus, when it's open, use a check mark. Those are different things that you can do as well. If you don't like the pink background, you can have it change it to a different color background. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that, come back into Rise here, and once I have this block, all I have to do is just swap it out. So let's go ahead and click on the content. I will just delete everything that was there, paste in the new one, and then if I go to the next page, there is my accordion right there. Now, as I start to scroll down, notice how it doesn't collapse the others. So I have one of two choices. I can either go back to Claude and say, when one accordion is expanded, collapse the others, or what I could do is just give this a little bit more height to work with and expand it all and just make sure that's not going to go off the screen like it is currently right now. Give it enough height in order for it to expand all the way out. All right, so hopefully that has been useful for you. I've shown you a lot of different things, how to vibe code a carousel, including an accordion inside of here, how to add images, how to do all of that inside of Claude. Now you can do the same thing inside of ChatGPT. You can do the same thing inside of Cursor. You can do the same thing inside of Lovable. All of these different tools allow you to do the same thing. So hopefully this just opens up different possibilities for you, especially inside of Rise. Now, if you wanted to check out, I do explain how to get a completion and prevent the user from moving on until they've actually completed a custom interaction if you want to check that out. Also, if you want to check out more, you can head on over to my website at Vibe Dojo. Here you can check out my blog with all previous blog posts. You can also check out courses. I have an AI assistant inside of Articulate Storyline. I have JavaScript for Storyline as well, which does a lot of AI coding. And then also I am currently working on a vibe coding fundamentals. Now I'm going to make that available as an early bird special where you'll get access as I start to build out the different sections You'll get access to the first 3 sections, and then you'll get each section as they're developed as well. So make sure you check that out. That is coming very soon. Also, if you like this video, head on over to my YouTube channel, click the like button, subscribe to my channel, as well as hit the bell notification so you get notified of all future videos as they come out. That really helps my channel and allows me to reach more developers like yourself that are trying to do vibe coding here. That's all I have for today, so thanks everyone. I'll see you next time.